Welcome to the Frequency Labyrinth. I am Adrienne McDonald, your host. This podcast is for you if you're done with surface level self-help and ready for something deeper and actually transformative. Around here, we work with ancient wisdom, human design, gene keys, and shamanic practices, not as knowledge to collect, but as tools to live by. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about learning to work with your energy, your design, and your life. This is about integration and embodiment. We go deep here with ancient wisdom, practical integration, so that you can develop ironclad self-trust. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time. Today, let's talk about one of the most overrated, misunderstood concepts in personal development, or at least according to my opinion, willpower. We have been sold this idea that if you just tried harder, woke up earlier, 4 a.m. club, drank more coffee, pushed through resistance, you'd finally get your life together. But here's the kicker. In human design, only about a third of the people have a consistent will center. That means roughly 70% of the world is trying to live by someone else's energetic rules, and we wonder why everyone's exhausted. The will center, sometimes called the heart or ego center, is this tiny motor that governs commitment, self-worth, and promises. And it is not about hustle. It's about integrity. It's the energetic space that asks, can I keep my word without breaking myself in the process? So in this episode, we're going to unpack the myth of willpower, how procrastination isn't laziness sometimes. It's feedback from your system. And I'm going to talk about 3 ways to work with the will center, whether yours is defined or undefined or even completely open, so that you can stop forcing energy that isn't there and start honoring the rhythm that actually works for you. Because your heart is not your to-do list. It's the real driver of sustainable action. And that's the key word here, sustainable. So let's zoom in on this tiny but mighty center that sits just to the right of your G center on your chart. The will, or what some people call the heart or ego center. The will center is one of 4 motor centers in human design. It's unique because it sits inside the tribal circuitry. And that means that its energy isn't just about individual ambition or collective ideals. It's about exchange and trust and commitment between people. The will fuels the heartbeat of the community. Promises kept, agreements honored, resources shared. And physically, it's linked to the heart, the stomach, the gallbladder. I think all organs that sort of deal with digestion and courage and distribution of life force. So when you think about it, that makes perfect sense. This center digests the energetic contracts that we're making with others. It's where we decide what's worth our energy, what we're willing to stand behind, and what we can no longer carry. So when the will says, I will, it's not just a determination. It's like a sacred energetic agreement. It's the heart promising to bring something into form. Now, if you're newer to human design, you'll hear me talk about circuits, and this is where things start to click. Like every gate and channel in the body graph belongs to one of 3 primary circuits, individual, tribal, and collective. I think of it as 3 different ways life energy moves through humanity. All right, the individual circuitry is about innovation and authenticity. It's the energy of personal mutation. It's the I'll do it my way frequency. It breaks patterns so something new can exist. The tribal circuitry, which includes the will center, is about support and resources and agreements. It holds the fabric of the family, community, shared responsibility. The will says, I'll do this for us. And then the collective circuitry is about sharing and teaching and pattern recognition. It's the storyteller, it's the observer energy that says, let's learn from this together. And each group has its own heartbeat, The individual brings change, the tribal sustains trust, the collective transmits wisdom. And the will sits in that tribal stream, which means it's not meant to prove, it's meant to promise. Its strength isn't just only about personal discipline, it's integrity and service of the group and of the collective. And when we misuse will energy to prove our individual worth, we really distort its original function. But when we use it to uphold honesty and reciprocity and right relationship, that's when it really becomes very powerful. In other words, it governs value. What you promise, what you protect, what you trade energy for. It's the part of us that says, this matters enough for me to invest my life force here, okay? But again, only a third of the people have this center defined. That means for the rest, including myself, roughly 70%, the will isn't a constant motor. The energy towards action and commitment ebbs and flows depending on who you're around and what feels meaningful to you in the moment. So if you've got a defined will, you've got a steady internal heartbeat of motivation. You can push through. You can keep promises. You can sustain effort when your heart is in it. The moment that the commitment loses integrity, it's like having the motor sputter a bit. Now, if your will's undefined, you don't have a constant engine. You're meant to work in waves. Your energy towards task comes alive when it's connected to genuine resonance or response, not because you should. These are the people that burn out the quickest when they start pushing themselves. And this is where so many people get this tangled, because we live in a world that really does reward the output, productivity, consistency, the grind, so to speak. But honestly, when we look at the numbers and we extrapolate and we think 70% of the planet simply isn't wired to operate like that, that's very interesting. And the result is you have a lot of people push themselves to burnout and feeling broken. And the open will says, why can't I just stick to things? The defined will says, why can't everybody else keep up with me? And neither one is wrong. They're just different ways of expressing this energy. Now, on the physical level, think of the will tying it directly into the autonomic nervous system, which means your motivation is just a body-based response. When your heart says yes, dopamine and adrenaline come online. When it says no or not now, the body protects you by withdrawing energy. And that's really your design saying not this way. Now, before we go further, I want you to drop the idea that you're going to be able to make yourself do anything through force. I think you can. Let me roll that back. I think you can do it for short. Some people can do it for short bursts of time, but it's not sustainable, because the will center, it really isn't about willpower. It's about being in integrity. It's about whether your actions match your values, whether your promises align with your capacity, and whether your energy is still consenting to what your mind keeps scheduling. Okay? Now, in shamanic traditions, there's this deep understanding that every exchange, every promise, every word spoken carries life with it, like spirit with it. And the will center through that lens is sort of the place where we create the energetic contracts. It's where we decide what we bind our energy to and what we release. And when you go back and look at the old stories, power wasn't necessarily about dominance. It was about reciprocity. And the health of the tribe depended on the integrity of its promises. When a leader or a healer broke their word, the vitality of the land would sometimes it would falter, right? That's how it shows the importance of how sacred your word is and what you commit to is. So when you overcommit, when you say yes out of guilt or obligation, you're not just draining your own energy, you're really distorting that energetic contract with what you're, engaging with. So think about this as, again, energetic integrity, not necessarily the moral kind, but the soul kind, like the kind that restores and keeps you from leaking your power, leaking your when you leak your power over time in shamanic tradition, that can lead to power loss and soul loss, etc. So let's talk about the myth of willpower and a little bit about procrastination. So we've all been told that success comes down to willpower. That is one of the big things that's pushed out there in the personal development world, the inner muscle of discipline and grit. Push harder, want it more, power through. And I've done a lot of that. I did that especially when I was in corporate. But over time, for most of us, the advice doesn't work really well. And there's reason for that, right? If we're looking at that 70-30 split. If your will is undefined, here's the truth. Your energy ebbs and flows. It exchanges depending on who you're around, again, and if something feels meaningful. It doesn't mean that you're inconsistent. It means that you're attuned. So when you're around someone with a defined will, you might suddenly feel fired up. I'm going to finish that project. I'm going to reorganize my life. Then later when you're alone and the current drops, your body releases the energy because that wasn't yours to sustain. And you may feel flaky, but you're not necessarily flaky. You're resetting to your natural rhythm. Now, this is a very high level conversation around this center, because when we take into account like the transits that I talk about every month and whatnot, that also plays into this as well. The open will's job, if you've got an undefined will, your job isn't to manufacture willpower. It's to sense when the energy is authentic and when it's forced. So you're almost like a tuning fork for integrity. Now, for the defined will people, the myth of willpower traps you sort of in the opposite way, because you can push through just about anything. You think you always should push through anything. You say yes, you overpromise, you keep performing long after your heart has already checked out, and eventually, although it will take longer, the motor burns itself down to fumes. And that's where procrastination may walk in wearing like the villain costume. Because we're told that procrastination is laziness and fear and bad habits. And it could be, but it also energetically could be a type of wisdom. For an open or undefined will center, procrastination could be your system saying of, hey, this isn't aligned. Stop trying to prove yourself and listen. For a defined will, procrastination could be your system saying, you've made too many promises. Can you pause here and renegotiate this? Either way, it's feedback. And when the heart isn't in it, the body's not going to move. And honestly, that's probably one of the most intelligent things that your energy can do. So instead of trying to conquer procrastination with hacks or shame, start asking a few different questions. Like, what am I trying to prove right now? Am I trying to prove something, right? Is this still true for me? Does this still feel meaningful to me? Do I actually have the energy for this? Or am I forcing this? Because when your will center, whether it's defined or undefined or open, is integrity, momentum happens naturally. When it's out of alignment, no amount of caffeine, planners, or pep talks can fix it. So, if the will center isn't about forcing willpower, how do we work with it? Now, whether the center is defined, undefined, open, it's not something you control. I know you'd like to, but think of it as something that you partner with. It's less like a muscle you train and more like, and that a lot of what we see out in the personal development field is like your willpower, you can train it like a muscle. That's bullshit. It's more like think of it as a heartbeat that you learn to listen to. And I want to walk you through 3 ways to work with this energy that are simple, I feel like, practical. So the first one is honor the rhythm. The will center moves in pulses. There is a time for action and there is a time for rest. If your will center is defined, your pulse may be steady, but even the steady motors need some downtime. You're built for sustainable effort, but not endless output. So if you start to notice things slipping and you immediately go into, I'll just push through, that's the moment that you need to pause. And likely you need to rest. Not quit, you just need to recharge. If your will is undefined or open, your pulse depends on resonance. You'll feel the energy rise when something truly matters to you or when you're around the right people. Or possibly also when the right transit hits your chart. You're going to let, like, it rises up, and when the current fades, that's your signal to pause. Not because of some moral failure, it's just the tide going out, okay? Try tracking your energy for a week and notice the hours, the places, the people that amplify you and the ones that drain you, because that pattern is your rhythm. Okay, number 2, I want you to practice micro integrity. Now, what do I mean by that? Integrity is the real currency of the will center. Forget massive commitments for a minute, okay? Start with tiny promises that feel really true. Like for the defined will center, that may be choosing one commitment and keeping it all the way through, not 10 half-hearted ones. For the undefined or open, it might mean only committing in the moment and saying yes when your body lights up and letting that be enough and allowing yourself to change your mind if you need to. Because when you have these, when you're focusing on like micro integrity moments, it rebuilds the trust between your mind and your body. And every time you keep a promise that actually feels right, you strengthen your energetic heartbeat. You strengthen your partnership with your will center. Think of it as like recalibrating your compass. No more giant declarations, just honest steps, right? We break it down into smaller steps. And number 3, and you probably have heard this before, but we're going to look at it a little bit differently, redefining worth and success. And this is the big one, right? Because both types get trapped in this same cultural lie that worth equals performance. For a defined will, success often gets tangled with identity. I am valuable because I deliver. I am valuable because I deliver. That may feel good in the moment, but the moment that you can't deliver for whatever reason, then that's when your ego takes a hit. But true worth lives underneath accomplishment. It's that quiet knowing that you were enough before the doing. Now, for the undefined and open will, the comparison is the trap. You'll feel everyone else's drive and think that you're supposed to match it, but your value isn't measured in output. It's measured in resonance. It's your worth doesn't rise and fall with your productivity. And try replacing did I do enough today with was I honest with my energy today? Okay? Because that one shift really changes everything. And was I honest with my energy today? The energetic exchanges through the day. Was I in integrity or not? And when you start looking at that, a natural byproduct of that is redefining worth and success. So when you honor your rhythm, when you practice micro-integrity, when you define what success even means, because that is a very individualized thing, right? It's very personal, then willpower stops being like a battle and becomes more of a conversation, right? And the will center, whether defined or undefined or open, it wants integrity more than it wants effort. It wants you to do what you say because it's true for you, not because you're trying to prove that you're enough, however that shows up. So we started with the myth of the willpower and the old cultural story. And I think you have to look at your chart as showing motivation as like a living thing, not a scorecard. So regardless of how your will center shows up, it wants, again, for you to move in integrity, or it really doesn't want to move at all. So maybe you have been saying yes when your energy meant to say no. Maybe you've been keeping promises that your soul already outgrew a long time ago. Maybe you've been waiting for permission to rest when rest is exactly what would bring your power back online. This week, try these reflections and just notice, get curious. Don't come from a place of judgment, okay? Now I'm going to give you 3 reflective questions to think about. 1, where am I pushing from obligation instead of desire? 2, what promise or expectation feels heavy and why am I still carrying it? 3, when I say I will, when you say I will, do you feel expanded or contracted? And that's going to give you more information. So remember that the will center it's the smallest motor in the chart, but it really drives some of the biggest myths that we live by. You don't really need more hacks or motivation system. You really need to see truth in your commitments and compassion and grace in your timing. And true power, doesn't come from pushing. It comes from presence. And whether you're resting or renegotiating or reigniting your drive, honor that inner heartbeat, that inner compass, because the moment your actions line up with what is integrity for you, like the universe is going to meet you halfway. So if this episode resonated, share it with someone who's been judging themselves for not having enough willpower, perhaps. And maybe what they need isn't a push. Maybe they just need to honor their own rhythm. And if you want to explore how your human design actually maps to your unique energy for commitment, you can grab your human design energetic blueprint. The link will be in the show notes. Or join me for a personalized one-on-one session. All those links will be in the show notes as well. So until next time, remember to find beauty every day and seek the magic in the mundane. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. Let whatever landed move through you in whatever way it needs to or wants to. And also, if you want to explore more, you'll find more information in the show notes. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it out or leave a quick review. It helps so much and I really appreciate it. And remember, this work is about integration and it always starts with self-trust.